Guys, welcome back. Today, my special guest is Bobbi Gio. Bobbi is the founder of Shatter the Stigma 5K. Bobbi, how you doing?
I'm feeling good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, man. All right, so Bobbi's a student at Florida International University here in Miami called FIU. He's also the president of the Society of Psychedelic Science. And he recently hosted a 5K to raise awareness about the therapeutic uses of psychedelics for mental health called Shatter the Stigma. Bobbi is pursuing his license to become a mental health counselor once he completes his psychology degree at FIU this summer. Bobbi, it's amazing to have you. We met a couple weeks ago. Want to get to know you today and learn all about Shatter the Stigma. So tell us, what is Shatter the Stigma?
Shatter the Stigma is exactly how it sounds. I want to shatter the stigma around psychedelic use for therapeutic outcomes, especially for mental health. There's other outcomes and other things we could use psychedelics for, but my main priority is for mental health because looking strictly at the literature, it looks very promising, honestly.
Yes, I'm very aware myself as someone who's passionate about science.
Right.
And I'm the co-founder of Miami Mushroom Fest, and we are all about education, about the therapeutic uses of mushrooms for not only health, for physical health, because mushrooms are incredible for your mind and your body, but they're also good for mental health. And there's studies showing that they help with depression. These are the psychedelic magic mushrooms, but there's so much science behind them that now the federal government is recognizing it, and places like the University of Miami and FIU are getting involved.
Right.
In fact, you're the president of the Psychedelic Society at FIU, and Marissa Brinkman was a former president, I believe.
Yes.
She's my good friend. So
I
you're
love
my
that.
second friend that is part of that organization. So how did FIU start a psychedelics program?
I don't know the exact details. I think it was like 5 years ago. Perhaps with Marissa, I could be wrong. But I know Dr. Lichter. He's been a big part of making it happen. He's our advisor for the club. He makes sure everything.
Is he a professor?
Yeah, he's a professor at FIU. He's a chemistry PhD.
Okay. Chemistry. So see, there you go.
Yeah.
Studying the chemistry.
Yeah, and he's the head of the pre-health advising.
Uh-huh.
So he's like responsible for quite a few things at the school. Busy man, but he's been a big mover for making it possible. It wouldn't be possible without him.
So how did FIU sanction this? I mean, most people think of psychedelics and they think of drugs. I know that's a bad connotation, but how did FIU get the okay to have a psychedelics club? Is it explicitly the science?
So I think how it started
And waivers and stuff?
Not necessarily. So
Yeah.
I think how it started was Joseph Lichter, and I could be wrong again. I should have a proper
That's okay.
conversation with him.
Whatever
What I know.
what you know, yeah.
He was teaching honors classes specifically, so a specific group of students were learning about psychedelics under his teaching, and then eventually it spread out to just now anybody. It's just an elective. Anybody could take the class as long as you're a FIU student.
Okay.
And so he's the one who kind of put the first
Interests out there, yeah.
Yeah, and there's other professors. I know there's another professor. I think his name is Barry. He does something with psychedelics, drugs, and mental health. And there might be another one that doesn't come to mind, but there's some other psychedelic classes that are going on, which is very cool. And what my organization does specifically, we do weekly meetings on just education about psychedelics, purely educational. So this week, this Wednesday, we're going to look into a paper that looks into the potential of psychosis under psychedelics. And the week before, we looked into fitness and psychedelics.
Sure.
So every week, we're just exploring what these substances, drugs, or whatever you want to call them, could potentially do for us.
Psychoactive substances, perhaps, because did you know coffee is the most popular psychoactive substance in the world, and 90% of the people in the world use caffeine.
I love coffee.
And I was just watching a podcast about it yesterday on my run, and coffee and caffeine is considered psychoactive.
Interesting.
Because it alters your mental state.
Yes.
So when people think of psychedelics, they don't need to think of LSD only or mushrooms or ketamine. They can think of coffee, and they can think of even other substances like that are, many of them are botanical based. As a botanist,
Right, you're a botanist.
I know this, ayahuasca, it's sacred.
Right.
It's the ultimate plant teacher of the jungle. So, these are not party drugs, and you guys are not sanctioning the use of any
We're not,
drugs.
no, we
You're
do
just
not condone
educating people about the benefits.
Yes,
and you're
and potential
reviewing
negatives,
literature. I mean, you guys are looking at studies, I know. This isn't just you guys sitting around with your opinions always, you know, it's,
Well, there's
you look
definitely
at-
a big part of opinions because there's
Yeah.
a spiritual side to it.
Sure.
And some of our student members, they love talking about their
Yeah, there's a
their
big spiritual
aspect.
side. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ayahuasca is a good example of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Mushrooms too.
yeah.
You know, it opens the mind to the oneness of the universe and the one
oneness.
consciousness. Yeah.
The one
The
consciousness.
global conscious, the big C consciousness we learned. There's a little C and a big C. The little C
So
is
there's-
like
Yeah.
us making decisions on an
Mhm.
executive basis in our lives,
Right,
and the
right.
big C is a, you know, as a human species, there's a,
Like the invisible hand is like
Yeah.
all guiding us towards a.
yeah, like how birds all
true.
fly together or bees. I mean, Marissa, shout out to her. She told me that it's not her idea either. It's a famous theory of how collective consciousness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forgot which.
Humanity is part of a collective consciousness.
Right.
We all have goals, fears, greed, happiness, love. These things are unifying, you know what I mean? And sometimes psychoactive substances can help people like soldiers who have come back from war with trauma and PTSD. Other people with mental health illnesses have benefited through studies with
Right.
therapists guiding them, not just doing it on their own. This is always done with, you know, supervision generally. You can put that down.
Yeah. No,
So, but how did you become the president, and when did you start falling in love with this as psychology and psychedelics?
So I've always loved psychology. I
You
remember.
knew when you started your FIU?
No,
journey?
not necessarily, but I've always been interested in the topic because
Mhm.
psychology is like literally everything. Like
Sure.
you're trying to figure out how to interact with people. In a way, you're trying to figure out them. And I guess maybe I always struggled with that. So psychology kind of gave me the avenue into the other person, and that really helped me connect. So psychology was always there. Psychedelics, though.
Even as a teenager?
Yeah,
I think
teenager
You
as
just
well.
were always curious about people. That's so cool. I've known a couple other psychology majors.
So what they teach us at FIU is research. So we know a lot about how to read research, how to do research.
So it is a science, of course.
But no, we're a bachelor's of arts
Okay.
in FIU. But
But
there are
there's
some
science
schools.
in it. Yeah,
Yeah, there is
obviously.
a huge
There's
science component.
Studies. And,
Yeah, they like really put it down our throats that we got to learn how to do like
Of
research
course.
properly. And I honestly, I'm glad. I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Controlled studies.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Double-blind, placebo
Yep,
control,
yep.
all those
Which
things.
is a big
yeah.
problem in psychedelics
Yeah.
research. Maybe you know, but
A little bit, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
so
yeah.
basically, it's kind of obvious when you take the psychedelic substance.
Sure. So if even if you're blinded, a blinded
Yeah.
study means you don't know what you're
Yeah.
taking, the placebo or
Yeah.
the active substance.
Yeah, and there's the problem of
Yeah.
like want to be a proper test subject. I forgot the exact verbiage, but essentially like you want to the placebo effect goes deep into effect once you know you got the treatment, so you act for the benefits. I don't know if that made sense.
No, it makes sense. Yeah,
But,
because like I have a friend who's a FDA approved psychiatrist
Cool.
at UM, and his name is Dr. Scott Fisher, and he works
Oh,
with
Dr. Yes. He
Dr.
actually
Scott.
talked
He's
to us.
legendary. Yeah.
He talked to us last semester.
Siegel Clinics.
Yeah, yeah.
Siegel Clinics.
Yeah,
and so
Siegel-
he works for
Siegel
the
trials,
government
yeah.
and for the University of Miami, but he's FDA approved, and they do controlled studies
Yes.
on psilocybin, where they actually take the chemically created psilocybin. They don't use it from the mushroom because
Right.
that has all the synergies, which actually you should use the whole mushroom verse, but
Right.
they get it from a lab, and it's called psilocybin or psilocybe, and they do use it for depression resistant studies, and so they do double blind, and he told me that they have issues with the study because people pretty much know whether they
Yeah, it's very hard to-
but they're still blinded. They don't know what they're gonna
Yeah.
get. So, but you can usually tell if you
usually
got
I think one of
the
because
psychoactive substance because you're gonna have more of a story maybe.
yes.
Or you're gonna see more things. Now they're doing hero doses too. They aren't doing microdoses.
Okay.
They're doing like 7 gram. If
Huge.
like that's a big.
You know, one of
dose.
the most interesting.
Under guidance of a psychologist too.
Right,
In a, they prep them. They give them
Yes,
a lot of
there's the whole process,
questions
yes.
and get to know them, and then they
yeah.
do also the reintegration back into society, which is important.
Yes.
We talked about.
I actually think that's one of the biggest parts
Yeah.
for why these psychedelics work.
Yeah.
But I was gonna mention one of the most interesting potential solutions that I read the other day for finding the proper cause and effect. That's what they want for FDA approval. Is like knocking the patients out and giving them the actual psilocybin. Which I'm not saying that's what we got to do.
No.
But I
yeah.
find that very interesting.
Oh, wow.
Because
So
like
they don't want them to be conscious. They'd rather have them be in like a dream
yeah,
state.
because you could actually like find if the psilocybin actually, because during the trip, which is like 4 hours, 3 hours, you knock them out, and so then you study the effects after.
Okay. Sure. And you can
I,
see what under an MRI what's going on in the brain better.
yeah, perhaps. Which
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if anybody's actually doing that, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, most of them you're awake and you're
Yes.
like in a typical like psychology office on the
Yeah.
bed, but they
Yeah.
give you a nice soothing environment.
Yeah.
And they, yeah, like I said, they work with you on the reintegration because it's not just about, the experience. It's about, how you feel in days and months afterwards. But
Right.
what they're finding is that it interconnects the brain. And
Right.
it helps the brain communicate better, and it helps people that have really bad depression or PTSD. Now, just psychedelics in general can help with a range of mental health illnesses, and that's what you want to bring awareness to is
Yes,
mental health.
and the underpinnings of that was actually a rat study that that basically what they found is that it unlocks the critical learning period back in rats.
Mm.
And so what that means is like it brings you back to your childlike state. So what they found in these rats is that the rats that were given the psychedelics, so they gave them either ketamine, LSD, ibogaine, and I forgot the other one. But the thing they found in common in all of them is that they went into this critical learning period. And what does that mean? Well, essentially they got more reward for being more social animals. And rats are social animals, but what made it so significant is that compared to I think it was saline, the control substance, those rats didn't really have an uptick in social reward. So like they interact, they got more dopamine, more serotonin, whatever for socializing, which is similar to when they're adolescents. So all these rats were adults. So they're temporarily put into their childlike brain for a brief
Very
window
cool.
period. And so like you're talking about integration. I think that's why integration is so important, because here's the like idea, the big field view of why I think it's applicable to all mental health. It allows you to pick up skills and habits that are going to be beneficial for you. So for depression, maybe it's a motivation thing, you can't do your bed. But now after the psychedelic trip, it's more rewarding to do your bed. It's more rewarding to now clean the dishes or go out and talk to people for a brief window, that 2 weeks, month, however long it is. And
part of that is too through serotonin and
those
dopamine levels. And,
Yes.
But serotonin probably
and
at first dopamine's the reward one, right?
yes,
And then serotonin is more for
like the feel good,
feeling good instead of feeling like you don't want to get out of bed or you feel
it
depressed.
kind of reboots or resets it, or like more accurately puts you back in this childlike wonder,
Interesting.
which is like they found it in rats, probably most likely in humans too, because people always talk about like
Childlike wonder.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard that so many times, is that's an essential thing for entrepreneurs, but also human beings in general, is to not lose your childhood wonder
Right.
about anything in life. Like,
Yes.
so I love that you're looking into that. How did you become the president of the Society of Psychedelics?
I just ran for it.
Did you have to get voted or?
Yeah, so it's a vote-based thing. So there was an election September of last year, 2024, and I said, why not? Like, this is something I'm interested in. Psychedelics are very cool, and I'm so happy I did, because I've learned so much about psychedelics to the point where, like, it makes too much sense. I think it is for the future. Like, psychedelics.
Yep.
Are
I mean,
here to
a lot
stay.
of tech entrepreneurs and world leaders have gone on these trips to Europe and other places or Costa Rica, where they immerse themselves, whether it's ayahuasca or something else, and they come back changed. And they're doing it because they are just learning a lot about themselves, but they also want to improve humanity.
Right.
So it's not a selfish thing about wanting
100%.
to become like the richest man in the world or the smartest man in the world. It's really about personal growth. And then also about, I think, that global consciousness we're talking about, which is how as humans do we get past these things like war, and borders and all these politics. And so I think it's fascinating.
It makes you more empathetic. So I read the study 4 weeks ago, on like they found, not that it found, okay, let me take a step back. They measured empathy in 3 different ways. It's your cognitive empathy, your automatic response empathy, and then your conscious response to empathy. And they found that both your automatic response and your conscious efforts of empathy increase after taking psychedelics. So you're talking about the global consciousness. if we become all empathetic, we're all coming into tune, into wanting to help each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like, there's so many things that I uncover on a weekly basis about psychedelics. It's like, wow, there's something here. It's like, this is
Yeah.
something
It's
beyond.
bringing people together versus separating them
Exactly.
and helping us support each other.
Yes.
And kind of also releasing judgments. Because
Right.
people have a lot of judgments about psychedelics, even on...
Shatter the Stigma, man.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that. So, Bobby, were you born in Miami or where'd you grow up?
Yeah, I was not born in Miami. I grew up here, though. I'm from Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow.
Boricua, pa' que lo sepa.
Okay, cool. I've been to Puerto Rico numerous times. I love
Dude,
it
I
there.
love. How do you feel about Puerto Rico?
I've done marathons there. I've gone to Rincon. I've gone to
Rincon.
weddings in
Oh, my
Contador.
Contador. I'm not too familiar.
That's a section of San Juan.
San
It's
Juan.
like
Okay.
one of the ritzier areas. I think
Got
it's
you.
called El Contador or I'm going to get it wrong, but it's...
Yeah.
Anyways, I went to a wedding there one time for one of my best friends.
I can
but-
imagine it was probably beautiful.
Yeah, it was. And then we also did a trip one time around the western section of the country, and then I drove through the mountains to get back to the airport. But I took a
Right.
whole day to go on I was with a friend mapping for an adventure race, but went to Rincon, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. So, but yeah, no, I love Puerto Rico. I'm a botanist, and
Dude,
I mean,
yes.
I'm an actual botanist. Like I study plants and I study the rainforest. So for me, Puerto Rico, along with Costa Rica,
El
and
Yunque,
Jamaica, these are all some of the more beautiful places I've been to.
Yes, I always make it a point to like go back to Puerto Rico at least once a year.
That's
I do
awesome.
live here in Miami. I grew up here.
Nice,
But all my family's in Puerto Rico.
cool. You have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I'm the middle child. I'm the forgotten. No, I'm joking. Not the
Are
forgotten
the
child.
other ones into psychology, or was this something
So
that you got
I'm the
into?
only one. My little brother, he's 10 years younger. He is 14.
Okay.
He just turned 14. And my big brother, he's 28. So he just turned 28. Like, it's almost
Cool.
my birthday. So.
I'm the second born boy too in my family out of four
Awesome.
boys, so we have something similar. In there.
Okay, cool.
Second,
Second
kind of,
child.
you're right. We don't get as much attention as
Yeah,
the first.
yeah,
And
yeah. No, I say it as a joke, honestly. Like, I'm glad I don't
no,
get
but
that
it's true.
much.
You can look into the psychology. The first child
I've seen
always
that. I've seen
receives
that, yeah.
the most attention, which they should,
Yeah.
because they were the first.
Yeah.
And then the second is love too, but there's
Then the third one comes
sometimes
down
the
fourth.
second fights for attention. You know what I mean?
Apparently I did. Apparently, like,
Oh,
I
I
don't
definitely
remember.
fought for attention.
I don't remember doing that, but my mom swears that,
Yeah.
like, when my little brother was born, I was so bad in school. Like, I started acting out.
Oh, really?
I don't think so. But apparently I did.
But it's fun to be an older brother. I'm an older brother
Yes,
too.
I love being older brother, honestly. Makes me feel good.
Cool. And your parents, what do they think about you going to psychology and psychedelics?
So, with my mom, she, like, threw the biggest fit about, this is like 5 years ago. I got caught smoking weed when I was like 18, 17, and she was obviously not a fan of that. And that's when I started. Like, I was not good at hiding anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was always like, let me be a good, like, stay away from these. Like, drugs are bad. That's what they taught me. And that was kind of like, as funny enough, the gateway. Because once you find out, oh, cannabis isn't the worst thing ever. In fact, there's some benefits I'm seeing from this.
Oh, there's many debates that alcohol can be way worse.
Yeah,
It's probably proven that it's way worse for your health.
I've seen just stats
I
like
mean,
that.
the car accident factor alone, plus the fact of
Yeah,
like,
car accidents,
you know,
or
what it
drunk
does to your
driving.
body, the
Yeah.
cirrhosis of the liver, the other, it just destroys your body.
Yeah,
Versus,
I mean, I'm not saying cannabis doesn't do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying cannabis is the best thing to, like, compared to alcohol. Perhaps it's
cigarettes
better.
are even worse than
Yeah, cigarettes.
Sugar is considered a drug.
Sugar, yeah, sugar. All these
Coffee is considered a drug.
coffee is considered a drug, but
It's
like,
just what's your drug of choice?
yeah, what's your drug of choice?
Yeah.
I don't really smoke cannabis anymore,
Mm.
but that would like got me curious into psychedelics,
Yeah.
and so nowadays when I talk about it with my honestly we don't even talk about it. She kind of like brushes it under the table. She
Okay.
is supportive because she was there during the race day. She was serving coffees. So
Yeah, we're gonna talk about your race. That's
yeah.
awesome.
So she
So
was
she was supporting the race.
she's supportive. But she never talks about it. She's happy that I'm pursuing my license to become a mental health counselor.
Yeah.
But the
And you're
psych.
getting a college degree, and
Yeah.
you're working on your master's. Even I heard.
Yeah, I'm applying for it. So hopefully I get in.
That's huge.
It's-
Well,
yeah.
I got a couple of resources. One of my best friends is going to school right now to get her psychology certificate at UM.
Cool.
She's a registered nurse. She's a nurse practitioner. She's going to watch this. She's super into psychedelics. And
Hi.
she's Gina. And she is getting her focus in her psychology certificate as a nurse practitioner is psychedelics.
Wow.
So, and
Interesting.
I think I can say this, she battles depression, and she
Right.
finds a lot of benefits from, supervised or the mindful use of psilocybin,
Right.
which everyone is at their own spot in the world and on their journey. Me, for instance, I haven't taken psychedelics in years because
Okay.
I educate about it 24/7.
Right.
You have
That's
to
the thing about
emotionally be
psychedelics.
yeah.
It's not something you have to take every time. It's not like
Mhm.
SSRIs. SSRIs have like a 60% effective rate,
Yeah,
efficacious.
SSRI inhibitors, yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it
Antidepressants in general.
antidepressants?
Yeah, because SSRI is just one version of antidepressants, and they're trial and errors, and they are effective with but like 60%, like I said, and then you got to take it for a long period of time. Psychedelics represent an alternate option, which is just 1, 2 times, maybe 3 times, and then you don't need to take it for years to come.
That's true. You can get a lot of lasting benefits from
Exactly.
it. And some of the prescription drugs, my mom was a pharmacist for 35 years, so I can speak on this. She worked in a hospital. She's a retired pharmacist. I've done my own research. A lot of antidepressants cause a lot of side effects.
Sure. Okay.
I looked into it because I have anxiety, and I was like, I don't want any of those side effects. I'm going to
Definitely
deal
not.
with it naturally by running, which is
Running,
another way you can
yes.
deal with, some mental health
There's
issues.
a
You
lot
can
of
exercise.
crossover,
They
yeah.
found exercise is like 10 times more effective than that's
Dancing.
just
Dancing's the number
Yeah.
one, like, healing. I don't
Sure.
know how to dance, so I got to learn how to dance. Apparently, I saw this thing where, like,
Yeah.
dancing was the most healing type of movement you could do.
for mental health.
Yeah.
I think running is up there too. We're a running company, and I'm a runner,
Yes.
so I'm gonna selfishly say
Running.
running.
Running's
Because a
up
lot of
there. I
people
think
run,
running was, like-
and just jumping on a treadmill is something anyone can do at a gym.
Yeah.
Or do a 5K like Shatter the Stigma.
Yeah, 5Ks are
So, how did you decide to do Shatter the Stigma, and what is it?
So there's 2 parts to that. What is it? It represents not just psychedelics and like breaking the stigma around using psychedelics for therapeutic use. I always want to encourage the research into psychedelics and also encourage the other avenues besides the traditional ways of healing. You mentioned running. That is a way of healing. I think there's like a movement of alternate therapies. So like we're heading there where it's just like it's not just take a pill and then there's a desired outcome. It's perhaps do some work and then there's an outcome, like a new healing model, perhaps. That's kind of what I envision alternate therapy to be, and what Shatter the Stigma is. And like, how did I get it started? I just like sent an email to a couple people, and then they said, "Oh, that's cool."
At FIU? Like some of your
FIU started
professors and-
within FIU, and then looking for sponsors and other people who could help me, anybody who could help me. So DMs on Instagram or on Facebook, on any social platform, I was just like reaching out. Email was actually like the biggest one.
And you just thought a run would be a great way to raise awareness? Or how did you
I
decide to
like
do a run?
running. I like running. So
Had you done 5Ks before?
yeah, I there was a time I ran 3 miles, so 5Ks, a little less than 5K, but like 3 miles every day for it was 25 days straight. So that was 100 miles I did. Like that's not an exact math because one day I did like 6 miles and
Yeah.
whatever. But so I like running. Like running is in me. And like every time I've done run clubs, there's a bunch here in Florida. It's really cool. They're very social. You make friends. I made so many cool. Like you
Same.
just meet cool
Oh,
people.
I met 5,000 friends in the South Florida Running Club.
There we
When I
go.
moved here, I knew no one. I moved here at the
Right.
age of 30 from Wisconsin. I knew no one.
Right.
I knew one person, an ex-girlfriend who lived here, but
Yeah.
I went to the run clubs with her, and I met hundreds of people
Yep.
the first week, and then thousands, and then the story goes on after 20
Dominoes.
years.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I feel like it's a great place
Yeah.
to facilitate conversation, and that's what I want the stigma, Shatter the
And you
Stigma
see
to
a
be.
lot of 5Ks also raising awareness about
And there's
topics,
also that,
whether it's
100%.
cancer or whether
For good
mental
reason.
health too is part of yours too, right?
Exactly.
It's destigmatizing. I have a younger
feel like
brother
mental
with
health-
schizophrenia, so
Okay, wow.
there's a
Yeah.
there's a stigma around schizophrenia.
Right.
That
right.
people just hear voices and that they need to be in a hospital or they're not safe or
Yeah.
there's something
They
wrong
might be
with
dangerous.
them. They might be dangerous.
I would say mental health, the stigma around mental health is way better than it was, let's say, 10 years ago.
Of course, in the 80s and 90s, it was like
Yeah.
terrible.
Like mental health that doesn't exist.
I mean, in
What are
the
you talking about?
60s, it must have been even. I mean, in the 20s, the 1920s. I mean, imagine
Dude,
they're doing
yeah.
lobotomies and stuff and
Dude,
shock
yeah,
therapies,
oh
and
my
now
gosh.
they're like
poking holes in your brain.
Yeah, or taking pieces of your brain out and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and just condemning you to a life of in a crazy hospital. Like, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I think a lot of people have seen that movie with Jack Nicholson,
Jack
where
Nicholson.
he goes crazy in the.
Dude, one of my worst things is I don't watch enough movies.
You got
I'm
to
gonna add that to my
watch
list.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest.
It's in a mental hospital.
Right.
I haven't seen it in 20 or 30 years, but
But it must have been a good movie.
yeah. So you started Shatter the Stigma.
Right.
You're a natural leader, man, because you wanted to be the president of the Psychedelic Society. Right. Then you wanted to get the word out even more through most people wouldn't necessarily go that extra step. So I feel like that's like 2 extra steps to be the president and then to want to start this, event, which takes a lot of work. You and I were just in the conference room talking about all the moving parts. It's a checklist of 50 to 100 different things to put on a race. And you put on your first race recently. Yeah. You want to tell everyone a little bit more about that?
That was one of the most stressful things I've ever done, and I'm glad I did it. Like, it's stepping into the fire. I just wanted to do it because I was like, let me do something. I'm about to graduate FIU with my psychology degree, and then I want to pursue my license as a mental health counselor. But I was like, I saw this as an opportunity. I had all the resources in the world in FIU. I just did it. Like, there's really not much to it. I just really wanted to do it, and I got it done. It was very stressful. And like I said, I'm glad I did it. Yeah.
So how many people came to your first one, and when was it?
Oh my gosh, it was the February 23rd.
So just like a couple of weeks ago, because this is March
2 weeks ago.
10th today.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Yeah. From yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I saw the photos on Instagram, and I met you a week beforehand.
Yes, because I went to that psych event.
The Psychedelics for Climate Action.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to Marissa Brinkman.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where we met.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible. And we only met 3 weeks ago, and I was still coming back from my Achilles surgery, so I was not allowed to run at the time.
Yeah.
But
you had your own things going on.
Yeah, I have so much going on with and I was just getting back from Bogota and all this dental work and stuff that I was getting done down there. But anyways, I did post about it because
I'm so grateful for it.
No, but I saw on the and I'm not shy to post that stuff. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to post. No, it's like we're in a new age now. Psychedelics, you should not be ashamed of it. And like
I ran into that a lot. So
some people say they didn't want to share.
A lot of support, but under closed doors. So or
the silent majority.
Yeah. So I talked to so many people. Oh, I love the cause. I love that you're doing this, but I can't put my brand next to it. I can't put my image next to it. I can't. And I understand it. Most of the time I said, thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Because it's still illegal.
Yeah. And there's still a stigma around it.
Underneath a study. Like when you do a study, by the way, it's not illegal. Yeah, because the federal government has legitimized some of the research into it.
For sure.
Whether it's MDMA or
recently,
ketamine.
The military's going into it. I'm glad. For PTSD, it's one of the main things I was advocating for the race. The application for PTSD is probably the biggest lever you could pull.
Yeah, we need to care about our veterans. I mean, the people who
and
are
first responders,
turning off their brains the second they heard psychedelics, they need to realize that a lot of veterans who have been through the terrible things of war, and that would literally probably commit suicide. We even hate to say that word on YouTube. If it wasn't for psychedelics and psychoactive substances helping them through their trauma, they might not be alive anymore.
This is something I want to look into too. There's some precedent to it as well in indigenous tribes. What they'll do. I read this paper. I didn't read it. I skimmed read it.
It's okay.
And yeah, of course. And what I caught my interest in that, it was talking about PTSD and the solutions for it. And one of the parts it talked about, and it caught my attention, was that in indigenous tribes, and then I don't remember exactly which one it was, they would, after war, they would put them through a ritual, more than often than not, including psychedelics, before they integrated them back into society. So there's something about these, the psychedelics that work for these indigenous tribes. I definitely want to look more into that because there's knowledge to be found in other cultures.
Historical data besides recent Western
research.
Exactly. There's thousands of years of documented use of psychedelics, from ayahuasca to ibogaine to mushrooms to everything to... There's so many other ones, that people...
Yeah, and it just makes sense. You go through this traumatic thing. Most people are not going to go through war. If you go to war, most likely you're going to see something that most people will never see in their lifetime.
Unreal. I mean...
And then you expect them to come back to society. psychedelics really allow them to integrate that experience and come back to society. That's like the
and deal with
working-
the trauma too.
Yeah.
Like things like ketamine have helped people, or MDMA
Yeah.
too. And
Yeah.
and some people think of these things as party drugs, which they can be used
Well, yeah,
misappropriately.
it became famous. So the
Inappropriately.
ecstasy is the party drug name. Yeah, it just happened, you know. It just that wasn't the intention
Just
for
like
Shilligan.
it's a tool. It can be used for a good
But yeah,
way
exactly.
and a bad way. Yeah.
Right.
Bad way. Good
Right,
way.
right,
We're
right.
defining what is good and bad.
Right.
The bottom line is, there's research showing that there's a lot of therapeutic benefits to psychoactive substances.
Right,
Just like coffee has benefits, like it helps you with your energy and your focus.
right.
We got a visitor here with a fly.
Yeah, there's
So,
a little fly, yeah.
That's so cool, man. I'm so proud of you. And you had
Thank you.
over 100 people at your first race.
Over 100 people. It was nice turnout. There's half students and half just people I've never, like, I don't know most of the students, to be frank. Maybe I need like 15. So it was a good amount of students. And then the other half were just people I've never seen before, of like older, like 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, a nice diverse group of people. And I was like, whoa, this is very cool.
Word of mouth, and they probably heard about it on social media too.
Yeah. I think most of it was social media, perhaps word of mouth as well. But yeah.
Sure. So you did it at FIU South Campus, I heard.
Yes.
And you're planning on doing another one in the
Yes.
future. We
Yes.
were talking about that today. I'm going to help you with the
Yeah.
with the planning and with the race day execution.
Yes.
We're going to grow this thing. Next step is 1,000 runners.
That'd be yes, that'd be lovely. Yeah.
Bobby's already 80% of the way there. I was looking at his checklist, and he's got some. I've had to do a lot of hand holdings in the past as a race director. I've been involved with. I've probably produced hundreds of races in my life.
For
working
sure.
with Serena Williams and Nike, to working with Ray Allen and
Allen,
Publix
shout
and
out, yeah.
Whole Foods. Some celebrities, but also just managing marathons and races with over 10,000 runners. And I've been a timer for a couple of years now, and I've been a vendor at many races. I've been a professional athlete, so I've been able to be a part of these, and I want to
every
help
aspect,
young
yeah.
guys, because you're exactly half my age, I think.
Yeah.
We talked about this.
Yeah.
You're the next
I'm a baby.
generation, man. You're a baby still, yeah, man. But no, you're getting your master's, which I'm so proud of. I got
that.
my undergrad, a triple major, but it was just an undergrad. I didn't go on to my master. I couldn't get the
Triple
funding.
major is interesting.
Yeah, botany, conservation, biology, environmental studies, all the same thing.
Oh, they're all
basically.
related.
Yeah,
Okay,
all
okay.
related at University of Wisconsin. But
Cool.
basically, you're 23, I'm 46.
Yeah.
My last 20 years, I've been a professional and competitive runner and a race
Very
director.
cool.
So I'm here to help you, man.
I've seen his
And,
times. They're crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be running my 10th Boston Marathon next month,
Congrats.
and I
Wow.
started running that in 2010. So
I want
you
to
can
run
do
my
the
first
math.
marathon. Like,
Yeah.
I've done half marathons, never a full marathon. I'm
You'll
sure
do
I
one.
could do it. I'm sure
I
could
did
do
my
it.
first one when I was 20 or 21 in the year 2000, but now I've
Okay.
done 50. But I waited 8 years after my first one to do another one, because I didn't really
Wow.
fall in love with it right away. So
Gotcha.
sometimes you don't fall in love right away with running,
Yeah.
but running is incredible for mental health. I've used it exclusively for mental health.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've never taken anything like Adderall. Not that there's any shame in it. I
Right.
just have always, as a young person, I was a soccer player. And then as an
Oh, wow,
adult,
me
I
too.
was a marathon runner. So I always had fitness in my life. And if I didn't, I probably would have needed to be on a prescription, And the sad thing is, a lot of kids don't have a choice. And there's nothing wrong with taking Adderall, but it's just like overprescribed, instead
Yeah,
of
I
like,
don't know
here's
much
one,
about it, but
here's
yeah.
one study that I learned about,
Okay.
because I used to be a forester and I was working in the woods and in the prairies in Wisconsin, is
Uh-huh.
that if you give kids something to do with their hands, like gardening or landscaping
Mm-hmm.
or working on a trail, like building trails in the forest,
Right.
that alone helps solve their ADD or ADHD.
I can imagine, yeah.
Because
It's something to do,
they're
yeah.
not, if you're sitting inside and you're on your device all day, and a lot of parents use these iPads and iPhones for babysitters,
Yeah.
or they're in front of the TV playing video games. I never liked video games ever in my entire life.
Oh, I love
Ever.
video games. I don't
Yeah,
play it as much anymore.
I always
but,
wanted
yeah.
to be outside, chasing
Yeah.
snakes, building forts, and
Mm-hmm.
then, working in the prairies, working in the wetlands and the forests. And I even had someone on my crew who had Asperger's. And it helped him so much to be involved doing the controlled burns and the forestry work. So because when
cool.
you're doing this stuff, you're actively working and you're using and there's something about using your hands. I don't want to belabor the point, but gardening alone can solve a lot of ADHD.
There's
You just put them in
something-
the garden, take them to the botanical center.
There's something to plants as
Get 'em to
well.
volunteer.
that
There's something
heal
to
you.
plants.
Yeah,
and
just-
animals, by the way.
And animals. Oh,
Yeah.
animals are very healing. There's
We're
like,
both cat dads, I know. I've seen
yeah,
your
yeah.
cat.
I have my
ones.
cat.
Yeah.
I love my cat. Shout out to Mincy.
Yeah.
Yeah, animals, just connecting to life.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
Helping.
So like plants are so considered life, and like
Yeah, and just helping, whether it's helping the
helping,
garden or helping your dog to get its walk in, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so it's really cool that, you know, Shatter the Stigma was such a success. You're proving the concept.
yeah.
Um,
People want to see it.
you had shirts and
Yeah.
medals.
Yep, at shirts and medals.
You had award winners.
At award
I
winners.
saw the photos on Instagram. People had a great time.
Yes, I had so much
that's the
good
most
feedback.
important thing.
Yeah.
Is the experience. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
whether you had 10,000 runners on the first try or whether you had 100.
Yeah.
You had volunteers. You were well organized. You took it seriously.
Yeah.
It's one of the most stressful jobs in the world. I can
Is
tell
it?
you that because I've lived it too.
Yeah, yeah.
They say
It was
event
stressful, yeah.
organizers is actually the most stressful career.
Really?
Along with, I think, law enforcement and firefighters.
That's
E-
crazy.
Event
I mean,
managers,
I
event
don't think
directors.
it's fair to compare firefighters and police officers to event planners.
Yeah.
Maybe in the stress.
Well, it's a
But,
close
like-
second, though. You can look it up. Go to
Okay.
Google. Event planners, it's one of the most, because you have so many moving parts. And
There
you have to keep
is.
everyone happy.
And not only that, I think the most
Yeah.
stressful part was like all the uncertainty. For me, it was the first time, so there was so much uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
And then I was like, damn, the day of the event, I was like, what if no one comes? I'm sure like this is like
Fears
very,
and doubts. This is
Yeah.
all part of human
Yeah.
psychology.
yeah. But
Yeah.
it was fine. Everything turned out fine. There were some hiccups, I will say that, but I knew exactly what to do to make sure that doesn't happen next time.
You
So,
learn so much. You were even
Yeah.
going over it with me. We were just in our break room and we were talking about all the different things you can do to improve it and what
Yep.
you did the first time and, you
Right.
know, how to get more attention to it and,
Yep.
you know, how to become even more professional. And that's it, man. You're doing
Yeah.
a great job. So we're going to hopefully do the next one. We're talking about November of 2025.
Yeah,
maybe.
that seems like a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. So keep your eyes posted, guys, for Shatter the Stigma. How do people find your socials and learn more about your movement?
All right, so I'm planning to do a separate social media for Shatter the Stigma. It's not up yet, but you can follow me personally on Bobbi Gio, so BOBBI.Gio on Instagram. And there's also the organization that hosted it, the Society of Psychedelic Science at FIU, or FIU SPS on Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel where we post educational content.
That's cool.
And yeah,
We'll follow you back on YouTube. I know you followed us today.
yeah, I had to.
That's so cool. So how did you learn about Sneaker Impact and what did you think today of our facility? I showed you just a view from above, but you got to see some of the stuff we make out of the end of life.
Yes.
And you got to see the podcast studio, of course. But
Very, very interesting. I
what
like
do you
this.
think about the sustainability?
Is this like soundproof? Like,
Yeah, we soundproofed it, but I'll go shut the door because I hear some guests up here. But
Yeah.
you know, tell the audience how does sustainability tie in? Because that's what Sneaker Impact is
Yeah.
all about: education, sustainability, social good,
Mm-hmm.
helping the planet, helping people,
Right.
empowering communities, and giving back, but also not wasting. You know, diverting waste from landfills. But you know, I know it's a lot about education between both of our organizations, and we're going to be a big part of your next race. So.
Very cool. So, sustainability is definitely a big part of what I want to have in the vision I have for this charity run. It just makes sense. Empathy, I mentioned empathy before.
Mhm.
If you want to take care of your neighbors, community, we need an earth to live on. And sustainability just naturally falls into place. So yeah, it's there and makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're reaching out to a lot of people in the community. You're looking for vendors.
Yeah, I'm definitely
Sponsors.
Yep, I had a good amount of sponsors in the first one, and we're definitely looking to expand. They loved it. I had so much good feedback from all the sponsors and vendors during the event, the people who were there, vendoring, educating the people about alternate therapy, about their products, whatever it may be, their services. They loved it, and the people loved it too.
Do you want to give a shout out to any of your sponsors, vendors, key people that were involved?
Yes. First of all, love my mom. She wasn't too involved, but like love my mom.
Hey, she was out there helping.
She was helping out.
I heard she was helping.
She was great. I love her to the
That's great.
max.
That's the first shot. That shows he's a good kid because he shouted out
Well,
his
she
mom.
was a good
right away.
mom. She was a good mom, so it only makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And then the main sponsor, Soul and Line Farms Mushrooms. So they're mushroom vendors. They do functional mushrooms here in South Florida.
Which functional mushrooms are like lion's mane, reishi.
Yeah, exactly. Cordyceps. things like-
Cordyceps, yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that help your body.
Yeah, so they were the main sponsors.
That's awesome.
They were great. I would say provide a health. They were great. They gave me a lot of feedback towards the end of the event. Like, wow, I definitely want to see another one. And they gave me so much positive encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
And then who else was it? CCM Research, clinical research. They were one of the first sponsors, first people to believe. So I really appreciate that. And Psychedelic Miami, they were one of the first as well. They just,
I've heard of them.
yeah, they were great.
What do they do again?
They do events, cannabis and psychedelics. So they just bring a bunch of people together and they just educate on it, talk about it. They make a space for it. So they're actually hosting one very soon.
They have their own festival, right?
Yeah, they have their own.
Psychedelic, yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah. So they do that. They helped out.
And FIU, of course.
And FIU,
that goes without saying.
FIU is
They let
huge.
you do it on their campus.
They do it on my campus, and they yes. How can I forget FIU?
And FIU is a Sneaker Impact partner.
Yes,
we've gone to many of their campuses. We've gone to their Biscayne Bay campus for their student government day, their leadership day. We go and we meet with
SGA,
all this. Yeah, we meet up at the Biscayne Bay, where I used to live up there, the northern part of Miami. And we have our special box at FIU, and we love FIU.
Pause up. Shout out to FIU. How did I forget right now? Right there. FIU. Thank you.
Yeah, Frankie Ruiz, he's one of our dear friends. He's also FIU alum. Elliot Mason, also with Run Addict, and Frankie with the Miami Marathon, of course. So.
And Dr. Lichter, my professor.
Yeah, you were showing me his profile earlier. And we're going to get all these in your description of this video. We'll put up the links so people can, follow you on socials and show them what you're
show
up to.
Them love.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So what are some of your other passions outside of running and psychology and psychedelics?
Fitness in general, so it's not just running. Though I do run a lot. I love lifting weights, heavy circles.
Yeah, I saw you doing that on your Instagram story last week. You were doing
I love
squats or something.
Yeah, squats, deadlifts. Bench, the whole nine. I'm not the biggest guy, but I am a fit guy, I would say. Other passions, I love talking to people. I think this charity run really embodies everything I'm passionate about. Like for me, it's like psychology, fitness, and psychedelics. They're like the nice intersection between the three.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was. So you mentioned how hard and stressful it was. Honestly, it wasn't so stressful because, like, for me, I wanted to do this because it's like I said, it's a nice intersection between things I deeply love.
Yeah, and it's a passion project.
Yeah, definitely.
Versus a full-time career right now, in the terms of being a race director, can be somewhat stressful because there's a lot of uncertainties. But when you have a good team around you, when you know what you're doing, it relieves. Because preparation prevents disaster.
For sure. Yeah, just preparing a little bit.
As a DJ, same thing. Sometimes it's nerve-wracking thinking, oh my God, I'm going to play at this new place or this.
Right, so much uncertainty.
But if you spend a lot of time on the playlist and you get everything programmed, then you don't have the anxiety of, oh my God, what am I going to play? Oh my God.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So it's all about preparing, whether your job is being a DJ or a, educator.
Right.
You have to have the research. You have to have the, the talking points in the sense of what's the knowledge you want to share with people versus just vomiting information, which is what I used to do, I guess.
Dude, yeah. So before all my meetings, and I do, like I said, educational meets for my club, I always prepare. So before a meeting, I'll do 5 minutes, 10 minutes of what am I going to talk about? What am I going to do? And then for the educational meets, same concept, just prepare.
Yeah.
You're so right on that. Honestly,
it relieves anxiety.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what I found. And because I used to get really anxious as a DJ, and then I was the more I prepare in advance, sometimes 10 hours.
10 hours,
for one gig, man.
Dude,
2 or 3 days in a row, I'm spending hours. Wow. I'm staying up till 2 a.m. I'm searching for all the best music. I want to make people happy, and I don't want to struggle. A lot of it's song selection, but with you, it's sharing the knowledge, and also being a leader. Young leader in the community, guys. Bobbi Gio. I'm so excited to have him in the Sneaker Impact studio today. We only met 3 weeks ago. It's so random how life works. I was at a climate change psychedelics conference, which people are like, why climate change and psychedelics? Well, why not? We're bringing two amazing communities together, and we're trying to uplift the global consciousness so that people are not so resistant to wanting the world to be a better place.
Yeah.
It's same
like
thing
I said,
with
it really increases your empathy. So I feel like, well, it was a smaller sample size. I will say there's 300 people, but it seems it does. And so
no, that's a big
Yeah.
sample size
Yeah,
events,
yeah.
300 versus like 5 or 10.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be bigger samples, like 10,000,
Yeah.
the China study, this and that.
Yeah.
But, that's great. I mean, so we'll have you back on the podcast again in the
Love
future,
that.
Bobby. I think we're going to wrap it in a second here, but I want to know, what is your inspiring message to leave the Sneaker Impact audience with?
You will make mistakes, but take the risk. I've definitely made mistakes. Like, it's incredible. So many things I've done that I'm like, why did I do that? That doesn't define you. So just do it today and take the risk today. So yeah, that's my message.
Awesome. Go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Don't worry so much, I think.
Yeah, don't stress it. Don't stress it. Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
We went for it with this podcast, guys. We know sometimes YouTube doesn't like the word psychedelic, so we might take out the I and put a little star symbol in there.
Bleep it if you need to, honestly.
Nah, man, I'm not going to bleep it. On one of my podcasts last week,
Yeah.
my friend said COVID like 10 times. I normally never say that because
Right.
it used to be frowned upon on YouTube.
Yeah, they'll censor it.
You had
Yeah.
to say pandemic, or you had to say the cough or whatever.
Yeah, the cough. Yeah.
But like, with psychedelics, if we take out the I, that's the little trick, and then you put.
But
in the
like
title.
even in verb, so like
And
the
you-
algorithm won't pick up me saying psychedelics, and
It's okay.
it's fine. All right. Cool.
I mean, you can get demonetized.
Right.
Like kids should not be. They
Right.
should be on. Everyone needs to be under medical guidance in the sense that
Right.
have a therapist, have someone who's licensed, at least, unless you're going to go deep in the jungle. I mean, I'll give you a quick throwback story. In like the early 2000s, like 2002, when I graduated from college,
Right.
I went to Peru and took ayahuasca deep in the jungle.
Well, there's professionals over there.
And we were thousands of miles from any road. I
Right,
mean, we
right.
were deep. We went with the canoes as far as you could go. The tribe only used solar power, and they didn't even
Wow,
have
very
clothes
cool.
on really.
Very
And
cool.
women from the tribe weren't allowed to be in the ceremony. Only men.
Interesting.
And they didn't have us sign any waivers, Bobby.
Yeah.
And guess what? They were watching us though, because they didn't want us to wander off in the jungle.
Yeah.
So we were in this hut, right? And they said no flashlights, which I thought was interesting because it was different than my experience in Miami when I took ayahuasca.
Flashing lights. Eh?
They didn't want any lights.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this was before cell phones. This is 2002.
Interesting.
And they said no flashlights.
Interesting.
So they wanted complete darkness, animal sounds. They were making all these cool sounds. This is called the Machigenka tribe, deep in Peru.
Machigenka.
But these were not certified by the FDA psychologists. These were, but they had a deep knowledge and respect
Right.
for the
I think that's huge.
plant medicine.
Yeah.
Is another way to say it, psychedelics, plant medicine.
Yeah.
And at Sneaker Impact, we want to also, we're talking about sustainability, but we want to talk about topics that are inspiring and exploratory.
Right.
In the sense of healing the earth, because we're healing the earth by recycling shoes. But the
Yes.
conversation goes beyond
There's so much
that.
waste. Like you definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, only 17% or 13% of shoes are recycled every year in the U.S. So 87% are going
Wow.
to landfills. 400
So
million.
What
plus
you guys are
pairs
doing
every
is
year.
huge. Then. Wow.
Yeah, our competition is a landfill, and that's our only competition. No one else. So yet, we're slowly building that YouTube page. We're at 150, and hopefully, we've had a couple episodes now on psychedelics in the last month, and there's a reason for that. I didn't choose it; it just happened.
Yeah.
But anyone who
Some
wants to come on
revealed
Sneaker
itself.
Impact News and talk about something near and dear to their heart, we're looking for inspiring stories. And Bobby, you exemplify that.
Right.
And I knew you came up to me and introduced yourself to me at the event.
Yeah.
You weren't shy in the sense that you didn't come up and be like, "Hey, Brian," or like grab me, "Hey, you, what's your name?" No,
I didn't know. I just
You
said
were just
hi.
like, "Hey,
You
man,
seem like a nice
how
guy."
you doing? What's your name?" And I was like,
Exactly.
"I'm Brian. What's your name?"
And that's how it started off. Yeah.
And then we got to know each other, and
Now we're here.
Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Keep up the great work. And guys, check out Shatter the Stigma
Yes.
and FIU
FIUSPS. Yes.
SPS. Yes. Society of Psychedelic Science.
Correct.
FIU.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Bobby. We'll see you guys at the next episode.